Before we begin, welcome to Midnight
Thank you so
Tailies,
much. It looks
where
delicious.
forgotten souls, rugged frontiers, and unforgettable acts of kindness come to life. If you enjoy emotional Old West stories filled with mystery, hope, and redemption, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new journey across the American frontier. The autumn winds swept across the wide Montana prairie, carrying the scent of pine trees, fresh hay, and wood smoke toward Blackwood Ranch, the largest and wealthiest cattle ranch for 50 miles. Hundreds of workers respected its owner, Samuel Blackwood, a rancher known for his success, discipline, and sharp eye for detail. He had built his fortune through decades of relentless work, and although many admired him, few truly knew the lonely man behind the reputation. Every Friday evening, Samuel insisted that every ranch hand, stable boy, cook, and traveler passing through should gather inside the great dining hall for a warm meal. It was one tradition he never allowed to fade, because he believed a hard-working person deserved a full stomach before another week's labor began. That evening, the long wooden tables overflowed with hungry cowboys, laughing over stories from the trail while lanterns flickered gently above them. The cooks hurried back and forth carrying steaming stew, fresh bread, roasted vegetables, and pies. Yet before anyone lifted a fork, a rich buttery aroma drifted across the room, unlike anything anyone had smelled before. Every conversation slowly faded until the entire hall became strangely quiet. Samuel noticed the silence and followed everyone's gaze toward a single golden apple pie resting in the center of the serving table. Its perfectly woven lattice crust glistened under the lantern light, and the sweet scent of cinnamon butter and baked apples filled every corner of the room. Samuel frowned. He knew every cook on his ranch, and none of them had ever baked a pie that looked this extraordinary. Walking toward it, he calmly asked in a voice that echoed through the dining hall, "Who made this apple pie?" The cooks exchanged nervous glances. One after another, they quietly shook their heads. No one claimed it. Samuel looked around again. Someone spent hours making this. Who deserves the credit? Still, silence answered him. Curious whispers spread through the room, until an elderly kitchen helper hesitated before pointing toward the back doorway leading to the washroom. "Sir, there was a woman helping us this afternoon. She asked for nothing in return. She simply worked until the pie was finished." Samuel's expression hardened with surprise. "A woman," he repeated. "Where is she now?" The old helper lowered his eyes. "She isn't eating with us. She's outside washing the dishes behind the kitchen." Samuel walked through the back door and found a young woman kneeling beside a wooden barrel of cold water. Her sleeves were rolled above her wrists despite the chilly evening air. Her hands were red from scrubbing heavy iron pots, and her faded cream dress had clearly been mended countless times. Strands of brown hair had escaped her simple bun, yet she continued working as though no one would ever notice she existed. Samuel watched quietly for several moments before speaking. "Did you bake the apple pie?" Startled, the woman slowly stood and lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir," she answered softly. "I hope I didn't do anything wrong." Samuel looked at her worn clothing and then at the stack of clean dishes surrounding her. "Why didn't anyone thank you?" She forced a small smile. "Because I wasn't asked to bake it. I only noticed your cooks were overwhelmed. I thought perhaps everyone deserved something special after working so hard." Samuel remained silent. "And why aren't you inside eating with everyone else?" he asked. She glanced toward the brightly lit dining hall where laughter could once again be heard. "The meal is for your workers," she replied gently. "I'm only passing through." Samuel noticed she avoided meeting his eyes, as though years of disappointment had taught her not to expect kindness. "What's your name?" he asked. "Clara Bennett," she answered. "And where are you headed?" She hesitated before whispering honestly, "I don't know anymore." Samuel sensed there was a story hidden behind those words, one far heavier than the small travel bag resting beside the back steps. He had spent his life judging cattle, horses, and men within seconds, but something about Clara refused to fit any easy conclusion. There was dignity in the way she carried herself despite her exhaustion, and there was unmistakable talent in the pie that had silenced an entire room. Instead of returning inside, Samuel picked up the warm apple pie himself and carried it into the crowded dining hall. Every eye followed him as he placed it carefully in the center of the longest table. Looking around at every cowboy, cook, and ranch hand, he spoke firmly. Before anyone takes a single bite, I want you all to know something. The finest pie ever served at Blackwood Ranch wasn't made by the head cook. It wasn't made by someone earning wages. It was made by a traveler standing outside in the cold ... washing our dishes while the rest of us prepared to eat. The room fell completely silent. Several men lowered their heads in embarrassment. Samuel turned toward the kitchen doorway, where Clara remained standing uncertainly in the shadows. Then, with a calm but commanding voice, he said, "Miss Bennett, would you please come inside and sit at my table?" None of them realized that this simple invitation would change not only Clara's future, but the future of Blackwood Ranch itself. Every conversation in the dining hall faded into silence as Clara slowly stepped through the doorway. Dozens of weathered cowboys watched the young woman, who had spent the evening hidden behind the kitchen instead of sitting beside them. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as Samuel Blackwood pulled out a chair at the head table. "Please," he said with quiet respect, "join us." Clara hesitated, convinced there had been some mistake, but Samuel waited patiently until she finally took her seat. The ranch hands looked at one another with uneasy expressions. Some realized they had walked past her all afternoon without offering so much as a greeting. Others remembered accepting clean plates from her hands without ever asking her name. For the first time that evening, the richest rancher in the county stood before everyone and said, "A ranch isn't measured by the size of its cattle herd. It's measured by how it treats the people whose work often goes unnoticed." Those words settled heavily over the room. Samuel carefully sliced the apple pie himself. Steam drifted upward, carrying the rich aroma of butter, cinnamon, and fresh apples. He took the first bite and closed his eyes for a moment. It reminded him of home, of the mother he had lost many years before, whose apple pies had once filled a lonely farmhouse with warmth and laughter. When he opened his eyes again, emotion softened the stern face that every cowboy feared. "This," he said quietly, "is the finest apple pie I've tasted since I was a boy." The room erupted into applause. Clara blinked in surprise, fighting back tears she had spent years learning to hide. She had baked countless meals in different towns while searching for work, yet no one had ever thanked her. No one had ever noticed. After supper, Samuel invited Clara to walk through the ranch grounds beneath the starlit Montana sky. Lanterns glowed softly from the barns while horses rested peacefully in their stalls. Samuel listened as Clara finally shared the story she had carried alone for so long. After losing both parents during a harsh winter, she had traveled from town to town earning meals by cooking, cleaning, and sewing. Many accepted her help but rarely offered fair pay. Some promised work and never kept their word. Others thanked everyone except the quiet woman working in the background. She had nearly lost hope that honest kindness still existed. Samuel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he looked across the endless fields of Blackwood Ranch and said, "A person who works with that much heart should never have to wonder where tomorrow's meal will come from." The following morning, Samuel gathered every cook and ranch hand before sunrise. Standing beside Clara, he announced, "Beginning today, Miss Clara Bennett is the head baker and kitchen manager of Blackwood Ranch. Every traveler who comes through these gates will be welcomed with the same kindness she showed us yesterday." A murmur spread through the crowd before it turned into smiles and applause. Even the old head cook stepped forward, shook Clara's hand warmly, and admitted, "Yesterday I should have thanked you first." One by one, the ranch workers followed. Some apologized for overlooking her. Others offered genuine congratulations. For the first time in many years, Clara felt something she had almost forgotten, a place where she truly belonged. Months passed, and Blackwood Ranch became known across Montana for more than its cattle. Travelers spoke of the warm dining hall where every guest, rich or poor, was welcomed with fresh bread and the famous apple pie baked from Clara's treasured family recipe. Cowboys rode for miles just to enjoy a slice before continuing down the trail. Yet Samuel always made sure visitors heard the real story behind the pie. He never praised the recipe before praising the woman who created it. "Talent deserves recognition," he would tell every newcomer. "Kindness deserves gratitude." Those simple words slowly became the heart of the ranch. As winter approached once again, Clara stood in the busy kitchen, watching young helpers learn to bake their first pies. She smiled as laughter filled the room. The loneliness that had once followed her from town to town had finally disappeared. Samuel looked through the doorway and quietly realized that the greatest investment he had ever made wasn't another piece of land or another herd of cattle. It had been noticing someone everyone else had overlooked. One forgotten act of kindness had transformed not only Clara's life, but the spirit of the entire ranch. The lesson spread far beyond Blackwood Ranch. Never underestimate the quiet person working behind the scenes, because the hands no one notices are often the ones carrying the greatest gifts. Thank you for riding with us to the end of this frontier tale. If this story touched your heart, remember that a simple thank you can change someone's life more than you may ever know. Subscribe to Midnight Tales for more emotional Old West stories of courage, compassion, and unexpected hope. Until our next journey across the frontier, may kindness always find its way to your table.